Uhuru, welcome to the Women's History Month episode of The Breakdown. This program is being brought to you by the African National Women's Organization, ANWO, a mass organization under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. The Breakdown is a monthly news, analysis, opinion program, as well as a platform for highlighting guests whose issues spotlight the international plight of colonized women fighting colonialism. My name is Coco Lewis. I am the lead coordinator of ANWO's Harriet's Daughters Book Club and Study Group and the MC for The Breakdown. As always, I'm joined by the president of ANWO, Yejide Orimila, who is leading who is also a leading member of the African People's Socialist Party. For today's breakdown, Black Boots and the Thin Blue Line, we will discuss the entrenched alliance between U.S. police and militias, an alliance that functioned as a de facto extension of colonial police state that has not only upheld colonialism, but has also directly contributed to the targeted oppression of African communities. We will be joined by Roxane Blanchard Johnson, co-founder of Life After the Impact and mother of Jamaal Byrd, who was killed by DC Metropolitan Police Department in 2019, and Christina Laster, mother of Kayla, I'm going to say Kayla Wilkes, who is currently fighting for her freedom and to get her child back from white nationalists. Before diving into today's program, let me remind you that ANWO is an anti-imperialist, anti-colonial, revolutionary, African internationalist membership organization for African women who organize around pressing local, national, and international issues that add to the special oppression of African women in films. Our vision is to create a world where African women have agency, are valued and protected, and are the makers and shapers of a new society. If you enjoy our content, consider becoming a member if you're an African woman, or donating if you're not. Our goal for this broadcast is to raise $250. You could donate at any point during this program by going to anwouhuru.org/donate or purchase our merchandise at anwouhuru.org/storefront or also at decolonize.com. Additionally, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on our platforms. We are streaming live on the Burning Spear TV and African National Women's Organization YouTubes and the ANWO Facebook page. Make sure you like and share this program with your network. Comment liked or shared in the chat if you do. I'm really excited about this discussion today, especially to hear from our special guests. So welcome to the program. I'm going to let President Yejide take over and introduce our guest. Uhuru.
Uhuru, can I be heard? Which is always the issue. Can I be heard? Yes.
Yes.
Is that it? Okay,
yes.
Good.
Oh, that was a
I'm
great
like,
question. Yes.
It's a real question. It's a real question. So I just want to thank you so much, Coco, for that introduction, as always. And I'm so excited for this program and the ability for our guests to really share their stories. And I'll bring them on one by one. So and Jay is with us. But Jay
I'm
is
so sorry.
Jay.
Our producer Jay Amiche, who is normally based out of Portland, Oregon, is currently out of the country, but she's with us behind the scenes producing the show.
Yeah, in spirit, not
Yes.
for real, in real life. But so welcome again to this program. I wanna introduce our first guest. Her name is Roxane Blanchard Johnson. You could turn your camera on, comrade. And okay. And Comrade Roxane is the co-founder of Life After the Impact. She is mother of Jamaal Byrd, who was killed at age 35 on October 1st, 2019 by Metropolitan Police Department. She is going to contribute her story, but also contribute to the overall conversation around the topic that we presented as today's topic. And then next, I want to introduce Christina Laster. Christina Laster is a powerful warrior advocate, as well as Roxane, powerful warrior advocates um, who were who and Christina has been fighting for the rights of parents and African children for a long time, and has herself then now been put in a position where she's fighting for her own child and her own grandchild. And with the Christina Wilkes Sherida campaign, we've named that Where is Iris Crumb. You can go to whereisiriscrumb.com to find out the full story and background after you listen for today. So her daughter Kayla has been arrested and criminalized, charged with the felony kidnapping of her own child. And we're going to go dig into it, and we're going to definitely tie into the topic at hand, which is the police and white nationalists, where we can see a very clear connection here. So thank you so much, comrades, for joining this program. I'm so happy that you were able to join the breakdown. If you want to say something before we get started, you're welcome to do so.
I'm just happy to be here. Thanks for everyone that's tuned in, and thanks for having me on the platform.
Thanks, Christina.
Yeah, same. Thank you for this platform. Thank you for this convening. I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Great. Well, I'm gonna just start it out by saying, like, we picked this discussion because, we're in the second era of Trump, right? And and the people are outraged by what Trump has done, is doing, and attributed it as some sort of special place in history that has never existed before. Some of them have done that. Some of them don't really understand that beyond Trump, that U.S. imperialism, colonial parasitism, this country was built on, and is bankrupt from the very beginning, right? It's used African people as the first, capital, and has built an entire project, a colonial project, on the exploitation and oppression of First Nation people and African people and other people around the world. So it would behoove us to understand that the police, which is an entity created by this parasitic colonial state, is a form of oppression that is used by the colonizers to oppress communities. I mean, we could talk as far back as what's the word they have? The chain gangs and the convict leasing and all of this to control African people, African bodies, we would navigate, to criminalize every act that we do. And we see now, like, the rate at which African people are incarcerated, Black women being an increasing number in the United States, that is not just conspiracy. It's not a conspiratorial discussion. It is facts. We have evidence. There have been research. There have been investigations. We have data to say that African people are being targeted, and we can very clearly connect it to this question of police and white nationalism. So I just wanted to open it up and see what your initial thoughts are about the initial topic.
Well, first of all, let's just say that number 47 he's a symptom. He's not the issue. He's like, when you get the flu and you have a runny nose, he's kind of like that, right? The bigger issue is colonialism and capitalism. And we have to be really clear about that, because capitalism drives everything else. So you were saying that there are more of us in the prison industrial complex. That's because they commodify our bodies. They've commodified our bodies since they started the biggest human trafficking project known to mankind, meaning taking us from our homeland and on the continent of Africa, bringing us into another stolen land, and then commodifying our labor, working us for free, right? And part of that, an integral part of that, is this thing we call policing.
Yeah.
We can see policing even before the so-called English people came to this country back in the United Kingdom. Back in the late 1700s, they had what was the predecessor to law enforcement that they used to keep the underclass in check, right? So if you had a problem with your employer, or your employer had a problem with you, you got upset because you didn't like the poor wages you would receive, then this entity that we now call the police would come and get you put into check. Fast forward, we see slave patrols, paddy rollers, all of these things that are used to contain and oppress Black bodies, right? Because in order for this capitalist regime to to exist in the way that it does, people have to be maintained. And so not only physical, but mental, emotional, every way you can think of, where our bodies have been maintained, even to the point where you got other people that look like me and the rest of us in here who will oppress one another for this capitalist system. I can't stress that enough, because sometimes we see it as just one layer, but it's multi-layered. And this capitalist system that we now see on its last breath,
Yes.
i.e., yes, I mean, let's just, to celebrate it. I'm trying to learn a line dance myself so I can start something. But we see that this colonial enterprise is on its last gasp.
Yeah.
And so when people are desperate, they do desperate things. So policing, the number of, we do on our podcast, we talk to so many families. Right? It just gets, it almost, it just breaks your heart how many families have been impacted by police. I call them violence workers.
Right.
They ain't no law, ain't no peace. They don't come to make peace. They come to create a crisis that then they feel they have to resolve. If that's not madness, I don't know what is. But so myself, I'm an abolitionist. People were going crazy when we said defund the police, but I'm saying get rid of them altogether, because they don't keep you safe. They do the opposite. They over police our communities, and yet our communities aren't any safer, right? And they're agents of violence. Their main purpose was to what? Make sure the rich white man property wasn't damaged.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Anything you want to add, Christina?
Yeah. So, I mean, like you said, it's a symptom, right? When we see the white ethno-state establishment and their slave patrol, we know that the intention is to protect their social, political, and economic capital, right? I mean, they chose the person that they wanted, who they knew would fiercely guard their power by protecting their capital. And when you think about their position in world affairs, in global affairs, um, it's one of those things where you see the shift of America happening right before your face. You see the shift of the European Union and the infighting, right, happening right before your face, right? That they went from being a global superpower to a regional power. And then, with that being said, what do you do when you don't want other people to see your downfall? You shut all the windows and the doors, close the borders and the entry points and exit points, control the people that are inside so that nobody sees what's happening inside and they don't see what's happening outside. And if that's your only labor force, because you need fiat currency because it's only currency because you say so, then of course, send out the neo-slave patrol to protect your social, political, and financial or economic capital. And this is the person they chose on their last leg to come and do that. but the rest of the world sees. And the rest of the world has watched as the Trojan horse entered a long time ago, and at the downfall of something that was not supposed to be as great as it became anyway, for the reason of stealing, killing, robbing, and destroying other peoples and nations in order to gain its power. And when you get things that way, you can't assume that it's going to be forever. So I think that they see their downward fall is imminent, it's upon them. And that's why you have this doubling down of the entities that initially carried out everything anyway, right? So that's what I see, and that's just my opinion about what they're doing right now.
Yeah. Coco, I don't know if you, oh, where are you, Coco? I don't see you. Okay. I see you on camera, but then you're off camera, but we're going to talk about it. But if there's anything else that, Coco, did you want to add something? I'm not sure why I don't see you. Maybe it's frozen. Okay, Coco's going to be back, but I appreciate that. I like what you said in terms of like Trojan horse, Christina, because, people like to think that, the one white officer who do some racist stuff is a unique sort of figure in law enforcement, right? But I'm going to read some stuff that I found. So it's like a 2020 report by former FBI Special Agent Michael German highlighted that since 2000, law enforcement office officials, I'm reading a quote, I would not necessarily call them law enforcement. The pigs in more than a dozen states have been linked to racist militant activities. The report also noted that hundreds of police officers were found posting racist and bigoted content on social media. Our promo image for this show was showing two white men, one that's dressed in, we didn't alter it, one that's dressed in police gear and one that is dressed in who was a white nationalist military guy who had his gun, and they were bumping fists. And we've seen that in a number of protests where protesters who, these white people can carry their weapons and go up and down the streets, and the cops be like ushering them through, right? And people think that this is some sort of anomaly instead of what is actually happening in real life. I'm sorry. So what do you all think about this idea that that cops are just a unique sort of a unique sort of cop, and that they should be disciplined and they need some sort of training. They need to know how to interact with the blacks or the Asians or the Hispanics. I'm gonna let Coco. Do you want to address that first, since we didn't get you last time?
Can you hear me? Okay. What's interesting, I have quite a few police officers in my family. And one thing for sure is that was the first time I ever realized that it takes certain personalities to do certain jobs. So I don't believe that there's bad apples. I believe that the tree is rotten itself. And every once in a while, there's a good apple that tries to do good. But of course, we know what happens when you put good apples amongst bad apples is that they eventually turn to bad apples. The system itself, Comrade Roxane stated that, this is systemic, this is how it's built. And you can't change. It's never going to be enough good apples to overturn to outgrow the bad tree. You have to cut the tree down, Uru.
I just wanted to get Jay. Did you need to comment, or are you able to comment? No. Okay. Good. Okay. All right. Any Christina or Roxane, you have anything to say about that bad apple?
I just add to what Comrade Coco said, that police violence, white police violence against Black bodies is not a bug. It is a feature. It is a feature. Yeah, because if they can control our Black bodies, you know, there's a Black man. He looks angry. Okay, let's shoot him. You know, don't ask no questions, and then make the victim look like the villain, and the villain becomes the victim in those situations. Those are not bugs. Those are features, because the whole thing is to culturally condition our minds into thinking that police are here to protect you, and they are not here to protect anybody except the capitalist system that it's feeding into. Period.
So when I think about training and education, even K-12 education, right? We're thinking about the way it was designed and who's teaching what, right? It's like if your enemy is teaching you everything there is to know about them, do you really recognize who the adversary is, right? Or is that up into a point? So we can see, and that's why I put in the chat, like even with the Tyree Nichols situation, right? We know that the corruption came from the foundation. So even with the training and the let's try to be more conscious of our decisions, why aren't you already doing that? Because all of your prior training didn't help you to see who the real adversary was. So then you go to more training with the person that is actually teaching you to be against you and for them, and look at how that ends up. I mean, all of it is just destructive, right? And it's not intended or designed to keep community and the unity in community. Ours in particular, right? It's meant to tear down. It's meant to enslave. It's meant to build up the fiat currency capitalist society, and I call it that on purpose. Because if we really think about fiat currency and what value does money really hold, it only that dollar, that $100 bill only holds value because they say so. Because they say so. It's not backed by the gold standard anymore. It became that did away with Reagan a long time ago, right? And so it's only money, and it holds the value because they say so. And that's the level of domination and control that we are suffering under. So, I mean, this is the way that I see the education, that it's not anything helpful because it's designed for you not to see who the enemy is and who is really against you.
We could have a whole conversation around the capitalist economic structure. Well, I would love to dig deep into that because it's a thing of legend. It's a thing of fairy tales and hobgoblins and unicorns. Like it doesn't exist in any, and it is exactly what you say. And we even saw just in terms of like the police, I think it's really important that as we were seeing more and more higher levels, people have more cameras nowadays, so we get to see the lynchings of our people in real time. And then people are now outraged by this as that became more and more. 2015, 2014 came more and more, and they're just like, this is outrageous. And then the report came out from the Malcolm X grassroots movement that said that every hour there's the number of African people who are being killed by the police, and that was outrageous because people just could not wrap their heads around the fact that the police that we were told from when we were younger were officers of the justice of the peace. They were there to serve and protect. But the reality is that in our communities, I don't care what community you live in. You could be in the high bougie Black community. You could be in the low income African community. But even if you walk in a certain kind of way, your bougie community, and you could be targeted because you're a Black person that doesn't belong in a certain way. And I think we have to say more and more too, not only just about the police, but the fact that the white people in general are police, right? They are there to observe and point out who is not supposed to be there. I'll share the story because it happened to me. It was like one day we was with a group of African women. We were at this spot somewhere in Florida, and we were at this retreat. This is a retreat resort that is primarily frequented by white families, and we were just having a good old time minding our own Black business. And some white person comes up and says to me and asks me the question, "Are you guys a family?" And if you don't know how to recognize it, this is a police question, because what other reason would this gaggle of Black women be doing in this place that's typically not known for Black people? We have to be a family, because if we're not a family, that's even more threatening. If we're just random Black people who have come together in this very white space, that means that there's some organizing happening. That means that we found, there's some collectivity that is happening. So I think when we talk about like the question of like police and white nationalist organizations, or just white militia, they, whatever their ideology may be, is usually like this very nationalistic, paternalistic ideology that aligns with white nationalism, even if they don't call themselves that. That it's very intrinsic in the United States colonial project, right? It's very intrinsic in this oppressive state. And white people in general, we identify white women as Karens, right? I don't know what the white man version of that, maybe it's, I don't know, but like we know that he's Bob or whatever, Steve or something like that. As a matter of fact, the name that we call police in New York is Jake, the whitest white name. And what I found out in DC, they call the police Steve. We give them the whitest names that we possibly can, because we recognize that the alignment to, fulfilling the code, the requirements of policing these dark communities to keep white people and their property safe. And that's exactly what it is. And so, yeah, I think that's really important, because, people like to, that Trojan horse idea of, that comrade Christina pulled up when I was trying to get to earlier, that I got to diverge from, was that, there's some articles that say that, white men or white people who are associated with white nationalist organizations join the police force, right? In order to exact their retribution or be able to have power. And so these people who are online right now talking mess about, white, cops who are talking racist stuff, it's inbred into them. And the idea even of being a police, whether you believe it or not, and this is for all the Black cops, all the Spanish cops, all whoever, is a question of controlling the Black community. You don't join the police because you're trying to solve white people and their craziness, right? You're joining the police force because you're trying to clean up your community. You want to stop Black people from shooting each other. You want it. So it's always tied to the oppression of Black people and the conditions that we have to thrive through, that especially Black and Latino and other colored people participate in being a part of the cops. So I said a lot, but I wanted to see what, if you wanted to contribute anything to it.
Can I just go back and say, while the introduction of body cameras might have been a good thing, I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence. It just allows others to see what we already been seeing for a long time. So now we can have it archived data of you killing our people, right? Because once they have this body cam, if you're a affected family, we call them impacted family members, to get that body cam, which shows what those officers did, they make it as difficult as they can. And if they do release it, they will redact it to make to fit their narrative. So it's, on the face of it, it's a lot of can I use the word here, bullshit? It's a lot of bullshit, because it again gives you an illusion of accountability without accountability. The other thing that I want to mention, that there is a website called let me see, I brought it up, mappingpoliceviolence.org, where they actually track the data of how many police involved killings have happened. Usually the average is around 1,023 every year, that'll report it, because they don't all report, right? I just looked on the website today. It says 233 people, and we're just around the third month of this year. So I would add about 20% to what they have posted here, and to let our audience know that, yeah, they killing us all the time, and it's by design. It's by design. And then until we start as a community, because me and my co-hosts, we're active. We say we about that action. We're solution focused. Until we start showing up in mass to some of these court hearings, to some of these, go to these district attorney offices and hold their asses accountable, they're going to continue to do this, because that's what they do. It's that by design. But we, as a community, we have power that we don't use to tell them to stop killing us. And when we start speaking in one voice, when we collectively join together under even, with this whole idea of qualified immunity, that's not a law. It's a doctrine that one judge put forth, and now everybody uses it like it's a law, right? So if we all join together and say, we don't want, no longer are you going to use qualified immunity when there's a body involved, when somebody has been harmed. There has to be accountability. Somebody has to pay for that. That's the way we stop it. Because not, even the well-meaning non-white people, or white people, whatever they call themselves, I call them mutants sometimes because that's what they act like. Even the well-meaning ones don't, when you say things about the police part of it, they shrink back. Because why? Because it affects their privilege to not have somebody oppressed. That's the bottom line. In order for me to keep having my privilege, y'all got to be the underclass. Y'all got to be oppressed. That's bullshit.
Yeah. Jay put in the chat, she said, unfortunately, most states have encoded qualified immunity into state law, but states are starting to repeal it. Maryland, for example, the state that I live in. So that's important, but it's still not destruction of colonialism, right? I think that's, they're turning back, something that already was, built on this parasitism that started this entire country. So I appreciate you.
And can I just add one more thing too? Yeah. There are communities, not a lot of them, where alternate community-based policing is taking shape. Camden, New Jersey comes to mind. I grew up in Chocolate City, Washington, D.C. We took keep each other safe. We didn't call the police. We protected one another. There were rules, African ways of knowing that we all said, you don't mess with old people, you don't mess with children. Period. Right? That was crazy. That was crazy. But some, because of a lot of people have been indoctrinated by this system, we've forgotten how to be community, and we have to go back. It's imperative. It's not like, oh, we got a choice. Oh, we can be in order for us to survive, we're gonna have to go back to those ways of knowing. All right, I'm done.
I think we should also say, we haven't forgotten to the point that we want to be community. Black people want to be together. I'll say that for sure. Black people want, we love on each other. We like the dances. We like to have culture. We like to be together. We like to identify our sameness. I know that it's the conditions, the society that we live in that has shaped the way that our communities are. When you have a police force, whether it's the actual police, the colonial state, in this many different ways, dig at you, have darts thrown into your community that breaks down the fabric of the community. That's what really decimates so I don't want to hold. I'm not going to hold that. I think our community wants to, and we are trying to pull it together, but we are being attacked at so many different levels, making it very hard. Christina, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I want to say that it requires all of them, not just the Karens and Jakes and the law enforcement, the liberals and progressives, the conservatives and extremists alike, to uphold the system. I live in California, one of the wealthiest places in this nation and in the world, which could be considered the land of the coastal elite, right? Supposed to be more progressive, supposed to be more liberal in their thought process. Black people are about 5%. Ask if they're protecting and serving us, right? I mean, so the mentality is upheld by all of them. And once you start to address it, that becomes hostile territory, because they know the police will protect their social, political, and economic capital. And if we get on the wrong side, even though there's only 5% of Black people in California, if we get on their side, obviously they're outnumbered. Obviously, they're not, the ones that are responsible for all the crime and all of this and all of that at a 5% rate, of population. But if we get on their side for justice, they might turn, the system might turn on us. And then what? Our social, political, and economic capital is going to be out the door. I mean, if you look at what Ohio did, right? Like Cincinnati's response was appropriate. Their response to protect their community from the neo-Nazis that the police are now being required to hand over body cam footage, et cetera, to figure out if their response was appropriate, but it was their designed response. So to them, it was appropriate. The community's response was appropriate. And I think that can happen in some places. But when you are in a place like even in my county, where there's only 1.2% of us, right? What does that organizing that movement look like? If we were in, Tennessee, where there's 50% Black folks to the 50% white ethno state people, then yeah, the response is going to look a lot different, and that is going to become a credible threat. So I think we do have to look at the ways that we've been scattered across this nation and what those population sizes look like, how enforcing happens, police, serving and protecting their property in white ethno state, right? Look and what our responses should be visibly, or whether that's, legislative advocacy. It doesn't really help because that's codified, right? Every time you try to point out the code where you're not supposed to do this to us, the code changes. The code changes by design because they have the ability to flex that way. We can say, bring out the evidence. They'll change the requirements for evidence gathering. We can say, look at the DNA. Oh, we don't use those labs anymore. They're not credible, right? So these kind of conversations are vital and important, because then we could begin to understand how people responded in other places, and if that would be applicable to where we're at, and how we can stay united. Because I agree with you yesterday. Like, we want to be together. We don't want us or our families separated, but tons of laws were enacted over a period of time. And then you have this era called the Reconstruction. None of those laws were repealed. And the only one law that people point to say, well, that was done away with, was the abolishment of slavery. However, I'm concerned if I got to go to any neighborhood that has Martin Luther King Boulevard, because I know that's where red lined people, or Malcolm X Highway, or Abraham Lincoln High School on the corner, because I know not to call law enforcement over there, because that means that you've been sent to that area to do a particular job. And we got to be honest about that, right? And so this is America. We know what it is. I remember the author of the lynching photography project. He was saying that you cannot tell the average European or white citizen from the KKK, right? You can't tell the difference. And that's coming from a European or white citizen saying, I put this together and I realized people didn't want to give up the photographs. I had to pay them. They were holding them as relics. People didn't want to give up this part of this era of lynching that, they used to go out and watch. They wanted to hold on to their relics. I had to pay them just to make this project work and to get the stuff out of their hands, because they had it in basements. They had it in their family albums and in their treasure chest of an era that they salivate over. And so he was like, you cannot tell the average white citizen from the white supremacist or KKK. And I find that to be true in a lot of ways, whether they want to believe it or not. But they're helping to uphold the system. Any other thing that gets dismantled, you'll see people come out with their pitchforks and their blowtorches, ready to light it up. Let them talk about something else. You seeing it all week when, like, oh no, not the Veterans Department or the Social Security benefits, right? But when it comes to us, they're not going to come with that kind of force or that kind of energy. They might stand in line, hold a sign or two, but once they feel some pressure against them, when their bank accounts are being, messed with, or they're being doxxed and people are threatening to drop off pizzas at their houses, they know where they live. That's it. It's going to be just us again. So that's what I want to contribute. And I went off on a tangent on that, but like, this is a problem. We know that.
Definitely a problem, and definitely something that I think more Black people need to be recognizing, right? Like, we have a desire for safety and order. We have a desire for democracy in its truest sense of the word. So there's this, every major political cycle, this is what's being drilled into the heads of Black people around the country, that we want democracy, that we want things to be fair, we want to be able to push these sort of things. But the reality is that within the current, political landscape, the only one that any one of us knows, this has been for centuries, those things are not possible. And we're going to talk more about your specific cases, but I wanted to give Comrade Coco an opportunity to talk about some of our stuff. I think you're on mute.
I am on mute. So before we go ahead and proceed with more of this program, just want to take a time out to highlight ANWO's merchandise. ANWO has to me, there's no better way to show, as an introvert, is no better way to show. I know it's look crazy that I'm an introvert and I'm the MC. But as an introvert, it's no, when I'm out in public, don't talk to me. I'm not mean, but there's no way to like kind of get a conversation started or to represent my beliefs than to wear my ANWO gear. I'm always, I think most of my wardrobe is really ANWO gear, and that's because it makes me feel comfortable to have what I wear speak without me even having to say anything. So if I'm walking around with a shirt that says revolution, 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 revolution is the only solution, I'm pretty sure somebody reads that shirt and is going to sit down and talk with me, and I'm able to share my beliefs in like a more one-on-one. But also I have to mention that these items are good. Like I have on my ANWO membership sweatshirt. Like I have the sweatshirt, and this is my go-to sweatshirt. Like if I'm around the house or have to run outside, because I live in Ohio. I know Christina just mentioned Ohio. I live in Ohio, so our weather can be anything. Can be anything. So this is a very comfortable. I've had most of my things for years. I have the backpack. I've traveled at least back and forth to St. Louis a few times with building the ANWO Liberation Center. I've went back and forth. I wear the fanny pack. I don't have the socks, but I think that's the socks and this sweater is going to be my next item. But again, wear your political beliefs on your shirts. I'm sorry, on your body, so you could have your political message, whether it be of we have our new veterans which I'm excited to get a few more veteran shirts, where we have Ella Baker, who is one of my role models. I have pictures of her on my walls. Ya Ensatois, Fannie Lou Hamer. Related to this conversation, let me just say one of my favorite Ella Baker quotes, and it actually I was reminded of it when we read Pursuit of Revolutionary Love by Dr. Joy James last month for Harriet's daughter. If you prepare strong people, you don't have to look for strong leaders. So if you make your people strong, you don't have to wait around for strong leaders. You're able to, and maybe we need to make that into a shirt. Because we out here preparing the people, So Huru, I'm going to go ahead and step off the soapbox, and let's go on to, talk more. I know that Yejide wants to get more into the individual work of Christina and Roxane. Oh, yes.
That's the veteran. That's the veterans crop.
That's the veterans. Yep. Now I don't have the belly to wear the belly.
It don't matter.
People working on that part.
Yeah.
I'm still get out here, get revolutionary fit out here.
Well, thank you so much, Comrade Coco.
Huru.
Definitely want people. There's several ways that people can support the African National Women's Organization, and this being one of them. And just become a member. You can donate. You can purchase merch, and it all goes toward our programming. This is a volunteer-run organization. We do not get paid salaries. Every single dime goes toward our fundraising and our economic development efforts. That means leading our campaigns, rehabbing a building that we need to rehab. And again, our goal for this program is $250. You can Zelle us even. You can do it right now. info@ANWO.org. Throw that in your Zelle, and that's come right to us. Or you can go to ANWO.org/donate, and also just make your donations in whatever iteration you'd like. So I just want to come back to our guests, because we brought them on the program because they have specific stories related to their children. And I'm going to start with Comrade Roxane, whose son was killed by Metropolitan Police Department in 2019. And I'm looking specifically for the question that I had right up in here, but now that I can't find it. Okay, I got it. It says, Roxane, your son was killed by MPD. Can you share how the so-called justice system responded to the murder of your child? And in what ways do you see this as a part of a broader colonial war on African people?
Well, everything from the inhumane way in which I was notified. I was awakened at 3 a.m. in the morning by, she identified herself as a chaplain and asked me some questions about my son. And I'm like, at 3 o'clock in the morning, right? And she asked me some questions, got off the phone, called me back. And that's how I found out about my son. He had been arrested and found unresponsive in Central Cell Block and DC. And people who are, familiar with DC know that there's a Central Cell Block, a holding cell where you go before you go to see, before you go to court. And so he was found unresponsive and later died. After I was able to pick myself up off the floor and start to think what I can do in this situation, I did get in contact with some local activists, Harriet's Wildest Dreams co-leader Nene. Everybody in DC who knows anything about activism knows her. And DC Black Lives Matter, April Goggins was there. If they were not there, I probably would have lost my natural Black mind. Just be real with you. Once I started to, the grieving process it doesn't end. you lose a child, you just learn to live with the pain of losing a child. I started to, there was no indictments or anything like that under the heading of, qualified immunity, right? I started to call around to then see if I would be able to get representation to do a civil lawsuit. I talked to 9 different lawyers who all told me no, they would not represent me, and because they did not see this as a winnable case, even though in that same span of time, 4 other Black people had died in the DC central cell block, is what they call it, right? So that's that. There's been no accountability. Another, Black man, he had a 9-year-old daughter at the time. She's now 14. She's about to go to high school, who has to live without a father in her life. And the family have to live. I had to live without, but that was the only son. I have a daughter and a son. I had to live without my son. He's now an ancestor. And so there's that part of it, right? But the injustice of not being able to get accountability when there's a body involved was the part that I could not reconcile with. I just couldn't. And so over time, I started to go to different events where impacted families, they're the families who were high publicized, the ones like they try to make it seem like it's a one-off, like the Tyron Nichols, the, Eric Garner's, just their families have different events until you meet other people. And no shade, no disrespect to them. I have no desire to sit around, eat chicken wings, and drink liquor. You see what I'm saying? I need to do something that is going to bring purpose to my pain. Because if I have to be that much pain, then it's got to be a purpose for it. And thankfully, I met up with another sister who feels the same way I do. And this is how we started Life After the Impact. It's not just a podcast. It's also a 501(c)(3) foundation named for our sons. And we are about the business of getting accountability. We're actually about to have our 100th episode in May. And as to commemorate that, we will be holding a legal clinic. Please go onto our website to find out more information. We're still getting it together where people can come and understand civics, because, they stopped teaching people civics. So, understand how a policy becomes a law, because in order for you to affect, while we in this colonial settler state, since we here, let's make the best that we can to get shit the way we need it for our community, right? So understanding how policy becomes law, how you as an individual can show up at City Hall just like other people do, right? And make and not only your presence known, but use your power to affect change. So that's my story in a nutshell. I don't like to get into the what I call the trauma porn, the Black trauma porn part of it, because we all know that's what they do. Everything is violence, violence, violence. You wonder why we got violence in the schools, why we got violence in our neighborhoods. Well, that's what y'all like. Y'all like to gin up stuff and create violence. So that's what y'all like. That's not what we do, right? That's not who we are as a people. And so I don't like to focus on the Black trauma porn part of it, but I like to focus on solutions. And when we start to stand up and say, nah, we not taking this shit no more, it has done it in the past. Our website, again, I see somebody said what's the www.lifeaftertheimpact.org. Go check it out. Like I said, we about that action. I hope that answers your question.
It does answer my question. And I just also wanted to say too, how sorry we are for the loss of your son.
Thank you.
And how powerful you are because working through that, I'm sure, I mean, this is a process. I'm sure this is the healing journey that you have to go through in order to make it make sense. Well, it doesn't make sense, but you know what I mean. In order for you just can't sit by, and I appreciate you saying that, um, and for sharing, the fact that you created an organization, right, out of this, and a one that's focused on exposing the parasitism, exposing the colonial violence, organizing other parents to help them see that too, because very often, like you said, some of this is about getting civil money, and helping each other in a way that I don't think is really pushing the envelope. Your children should not be dead. The system is horrible. It is not bankrupt. It's not corrupt. It is intrinsic. And so being able to clearly display that message, I think, is really critical. And I appreciate you for coming on and helping to expose that as a person who has experienced the traumatic loss of your child at the hands of the colonial police. Appreciate that. So, Chris, so I'm going to navigate over to Christina. Christina, we've been heavy into your case, which is the case of Kayla Wilkes, and the case of Kayla Wilkes, who is your daughter, and your granddaughter Iris Crum, whose location we do not know, whose well-being we're not aware of. So Kayla is being unjustly held on fraudulent child abduction charges, while her daughter has been taken by the paternal family with ties to white nationalist organizations such as the KKK. How does this case expose the role of the police and the courts in upholding colonial power and tearing African families apart?
So I want to talk because a part of my profession is as a policy and legislation expert in the child education and K to 12 education space. So I understand the way things are codified. And though we can't necessarily legislate hard change, we can always pursue and legislate justice, whether that be by lawsuit or and asking for criminal charges, utilizing, like Roxane said, the systems that we have available to us, even though we know that we are asking an unjust system to then turn and somehow be just. Okay. So, when we look at the colonial laws, slavery laws, Party Sequitur Ventrum was one of those laws that was first created to govern Black women, enslaved chattel slaves, reproductive systems. Okay, reproduction. Party Sequitur Ventrum means literally that which follows the belly, or offspring follows the belly. Okay. But what it did was say that, the mom, whatever the mom's condition is, that was going to be automatically the child's condition. And the masters have the right to dictate that, not anyone else. Okay. And that was codified, which started from a legal doctrine. I think we talked about the ways that principles and codes are set based on doctrine, right? And that's how they structured their society. That came from English crown colonies, Virginia being the first one. And what we need to understand when we're looking at family law, family courts, and the way that law enforcement is carried out based on child safety laws and codes, is that those derives from English colonial rule, and which those things were taken from Roman civil law. We know that Roman societies were not all that couth, when it came to the way that they dealt with people and their own citizens, to be exact. It was more barbaric in ways that we don't exercise our lifestyles, our values, or our beliefs. So when we're thinking about the upholding of the fraud upon the courts, which is obvious at this point in my daughter's case, misrepresentations by the lawyers, the ability for the system to flex when they made, actions visible to the public through Amber Alerts, and all of those things, the ability of them to flex then But when my daughter needed them to flex, their hands were tied. Then we can see the ways that the partis sequitur ventrum are carried out. Why do I say that? Because on January 12th, the biological dad of my granddaughter died in a motorcycle accident. And that same day, his dad was able to inherit somehow my granddaughter as property, even nullifying my daughter, who is the sole living parent's rights. And though the dad died, that still did not free her from this fraudulent claims. It's like the family picked it right up and continued the process. And that reminds me of the way that plantations were ran, right? Can't take this child off this property. And if we choose to buy, sell, or trade your offspring, they inherit the condition that you have. You ain't got no rights. So you're going to do what we say. And so, unfortunately, I have watched the system, meaning family law, criminal law, and the law enforcement agencies, able to flex when it came to the Crumb family, but hands tied when it came to actually enforcing the law. Because we have a family code in the state of California, 3010, that says that when one parent dies, the sole living parent automatically has the rights, full legal, custodial, physical rights of their child. My daughter had to attempt to go to court to fight for them to enforce the law against the grandfather, who shouldn't have any legal rights or standing. But he was protected. She was arrested. Again, after we already fought off fraudulent charges of child abduction for her keeping my granddaughter safe from abusers who burned her with cigarettes and beat her on the back like a slave, to where her back looked like raw steak, and her body was beaten and bruised. They ignored that evidence. Why? Because it's their system and they say so. We don't have to take a look into the abuse and harm that was caused by the Crumb family, but the black mom, my daughter, don't got a right to take her away from them and take her to safety. No, you can't do that in this system, even though the code says it. Okay, we got to talk about victims of violence not protected, abusers protected, child welfare laws that are supposed to be designed for the well-being of the child and the family, to keep them from violence, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it only works when they say so. Okay, and that's what I mean by that. So in this situation, I bring up partis sequitur ventrum because even during Reconstruction, whatever that means, okay, those laws were not repealed. I brought that up before. They claim it is automatic under abolition, but we know how how that has helped with the 13th Amendment and people getting locked up, right? Abolition didn't do away with that, because there's a clause or a loophole, right? And so you don't even see in history a major systemic government effort to return children to the parents of who were robbed of their children during slavery. That separation, they never rectified that. That's still being carried out through family courts and child welfare systems today. That separation, that alienation. She gave birth, you're right, to the child, and the legal system is protecting abusive abductors, but it's still a part of their foundation. This is what they did with partis sequitur ventrum. And, we see that being carried out today. You can't even tell me how many children the so-called Free Men's Bureau brought back to their parents after slavery. Did they go get them? Where they at? Right? Our families were destroyed in ways that we still have not been able to, recover from. And you still seeing it being carried out under neo-slave codes, neo-black codes, neo-organizations and agencies. right? Neo government barriers and systemic fraud. And then when you say, hey, this lawyer who took under oath and under your associations and organizations ethical rules and codes to become a lawyer, who acted in a fraudulent way, they're the ones that get to determine whether that's true or false. We've submitted an overabundance of evidence in this case to show that my daughter was acting well within her rights, had a custodial order that the dad failed to notify the courts of, and his lawyer acted fraudulently with misrepresentations of the facts. They obviously didn't tell the courts of the abuse with the cigarette burns and the beating on the back. They obviously didn't show the courts the video of my granddaughter saying what happened to her. Two of the child welfare agencies in two different states got a report from my granddaughter saying her dad beat her on the back and burned her with cigarettes. They didn't care about those reports. But had it been us, they'd care about those reports. And those agencies would have came in swinging to get the children out the house. The agencies would have took them. We wouldn't have had to go and appeal to the courts to do the right thing. So we are still in the process of, appealing for the courts to do the right thing and honor the rights of Kayla as the mom who protected her child from violent abusers. But I think at this point, because the system knee-jerk reacted, they know that there is a codified remedy called a lawsuit to that. They're fully invested in their mishaps. The state of California did dismiss all charges against my daughter in the interest of public interest of justice. Tennessee, in true and proper white supremacist fashion, doubled down, adding charges, asking for her to be extradited. She walked out of family court fighting for her rights under Family Law Code 3010 in California on February 26th to handcuffs. And now is in San Diego fighting extradition to Tennessee. And now San Diego is courts are saying they don't know if it's a conflict of interest for them to now be the sanctuary and asylum state, having to protect her from the other state because all of this originated in California. Right?
I think there's
And so they will keep us in a codified web of nonsense trying to fight for our own children. Why? Because they see them as their property.
it's really important that people understand too. So I think there's a struggle sometimes that happens when and can I be heard okay? I had to switch computers. Okay. There's a struggle that happens, I think, when it comes to the stuff that women raise. That we're talking about very serious issues. And I think when it comes to the family, right, that if we're talking around issues where a woman is criminalized by the state because she's protecting her family, and is entrenched in all these legal things, that it could sometimes be seen as something that is not necessarily a struggle that everybody needs to take on, right? Like it could be seen as a women's issue or that's a personal issue as opposed to a challenge to the colonial state, as opposed to a problem that we need to solve because this woman is trapped by the colonial state, is a captive by the colonial state right now. So I think that's really important to say right now too. And that both issues here, the murder of a child, the kidnapping of a grandchild, the incarceration of a daughter, all of this, in my view, are the birth and reproductive justice issue. Like this is about being able to maintain and have agency over our children, or through our children be able to establish legacy, to continue our line. And this is not just a demand to be able to have abortions, which is a valid demand for many people. This is a demand to keep our children. The ones that we birth, the ones that we want to keep safe, the ones that we don't know if we can keep safe because just them walking down the street could mean the end of their life. Just them fighting for their own children could mean they will be jailed or incarcerated, jailed and criminalized held up on all these charges. This to me overall is a broader discussion too
of this question of birth and reproduction that has to be addressed, because all over the world, this is being challenged. Black women, if we aren't fighting the statistic around being able to have babies without dying in childbirth, or without having our children not being able to live beyond a year, if we're not battling that and are able to successfully give birth to our children, and they die in wars, they die from hunger, they die from poverty, they die because the police has killed them, they die because of military attacks, they are incarcerated and jailed, they are raped, they are doing this, all these things that have really challenged the ability for African people to reproduce life for ourselves within the virtue of like our own children. So I just wanted to say that, because Christina, you got to tell me what this code is, in terms of like the right to the mother, the children following the line of the mother, based on that, right?
Partus,
Yes. Yeah.
Partus, partus, sequitur is
Mhm.
Sequitur,
Mhm.
ventrum,
Mhm.
Ventrum. And I want all of y'all to look that up, because I want you to know that was never formally recalled.
Yeah.
That was never formally rescinded.
Yeah.
And we know one thing about this system: it likes to replenish itself, recycle, and reshape itself. And it does that over and over again. And so party sequitur ventrum is being carried out today. And yes, that had to do directly with Black women's bodies and their reproductive rights
Our reproductive rights
that were
aren't
governed.
respected unless
Yeah,
we're producing for white people. Unless
right.
unless our children are being born to work on somebody's plantation or be in somebody's factory, the value of our children underneath this system is as a worker, as a body, is a property piece. And so, it's
You know what else it
go ahead.
did? You know what else it did, real quick, and I'm gonna get off my soapbox, because I really want women to know about this. It allowed white men to rape us with immunity, right? Not to be responsible for their offspring. So we talk about deadbeat dads codified. Part of Secretary Ventrum codified the biggest deadbeat dad in this nation. Okay. And we talk about, rights to be able to say where we wanted our children to go, how we wanted them to be brought up, how we wanted to even give birth. If we wanted to have 10 or 3 children, no, part of Secretary Ventrum governed all of that. And it was all for financial profit and gain, because again we go back to capitalism, the English colonies, and the crown, and all of those rules and laws that have not been rescinded and are a part of what we see being carried out today. Now they might not call it that, they might not call themselves agents of Party Sequitur Ventrum, but if you ask them when did they do away with it, they can't answer you either.
We're in the colony. And what I continue to say, and let me know if there's any point you can't hear what I'm saying. What I continue to say is that we haven't destroyed colonialism. It's been able to be changed, and it's wily, right? Like the colonizers are wily. They maintain power by adopting your language, adopting your food, adopting your music, and adopting your culture, and shrouding themselves in that. But it's still colonialism. And not saying that the United States has done all of that, but it's still colonialism. And so what we have to understand is that we got to get free,
Mm-hmm.
right? The ultimate goal is to get free, because I don't want Christina to talk about part of Sequitur Venture one more. I don't want Roxanne to have to ask for nobody body cam. You know what I'm saying? Like we have to be free, y'all. And I know I'm saying that in a broad sort of way, but the way that we get free is about organizing. And when we call on people to come out and support Roxanne and other people who have been impacted by the police terror, y'all gotta come and stay and organize and join something, right? Not just protest and put it on camera, but be a part of the solution that they're trying to build toward. And when we say come out to a press conference for Kayla Wilkes Sherrod and Iris Crum, y'all should be outraged that a white nationalist affiliated family has a black child and we don't know her medical condition after being in a car accident. We don't know her location. The courts aren't demanding that. You know, we don't know nothing. All we know that and the audacity of the family, right? To say we ain't gonna give it to you because Kayla's in jail. In jail because they initiated the recapture of Kayla. So this, when Christina talks about her case, I'm just like, yo, we back in the times when you escape from the plantation, they're gonna hunt you down and they're gonna make you pay, and I think this is really important, like as this topic of black boots and the thin blue line, which is a reference to the black boots of white nationalist groups such as the skinheads and such and so forth, and the black boots of the police that when you wear a uniform, you wear black shoes. You ain't wearing pink shoes. You ain't wearing red shoes. You wearing black shoes. And the thin blue line is the way that we express that has been to represent police and law enforcement in this country, and the connection between these black boots that we have to really not separate it from the colonizer and the colonial project, that this is a part of it. This is the way it works. And like Coco said, if it doesn't work like this, is if we find that one good cop. It's not the one bad apple. It's the one good apple that be trying, right? But I say to that good apple, get the hell up out of the police. Go find other uses for yourself, because being a part of the police, the colonial police army, is not where your good self should be. You need to be in these streets. You need to be educating our communities, organizing our communities to defend themselves against police violence. That's what you need to be. But if you choose not to, then I don't know how good of an apple you are. You know what I'm saying? There's no way to justify that. So I think that that's really important, and I keep saying that because I also need to be reinforced throughout a program by repeating things over and over and over again. But I also want the people to remember that when an issue is raised by African women that happens to be around children, that you should see that as an attack on African people. People. The children are our future. Didn't they have a song about that? I believe the children are our future. And if we can't defend our children, if we can't show up, if we can't protect the people who birth children, if we can't do any of that, then how in the hell are we about making this revolution if the very foundation of your society is being attacked and you do not show up? And I'm saying that because we've had experiences with the work that we do in the African National Women's Organization, where it's hard to get people out because there are challenges to the idea of the systems that we are struggling against. So, for example, with Child Protective Services, we're told or we're indoctrinated that this is an institution that's supposed to protect children, and so generally speaking, we believe it. And then when we say that a mother is asking for her child back from the state, what did the mother do? It's never a question of what did the state do. It's never a question or a challenge or a criminalization or an accusation, an expose of the state and the things that it has done to attack this mother who very desperately wants her child back. And we have to change the way that we think about that and that dynamic, and really look at this attack that is happening to women as a part of the things that we have to solve as we get closer and closer to making revolution. So I want this thing to crumble. It is in crisis, but in order for us to get to the other side and have a society that's equitable and fair, we have to be able to start thinking about these issues in a way that is equitable and fair, and also in ways that we can forward the struggles that African women are being tied to, because they're not always tied to police violence in an overt way. They're tied to the many different levels of attacks that happen within the so-called justice system that will wrap you up, chain you to the wall, and throw darts at you until you are made to look like some sort of crazy person for wanting your freedom. And for the most part, it can be believed.
Can I say
Yeah,
something?
absolutely.
I appreciate ANWO, and I'm gonna tell you guys, support them because they're supporting people like me, and society might not have thought that I was one of the people that needed support, because remember, I do policy and legislation by profession. But when this happens to your family, and I hope it never does, right? You start to reach out to find out who can have my back because I'm coming against a beast. And I went to the Mother's Day March in DC last year, and I told my sisters at ANWO what was going on. They didn't know me, and I didn't know them. That was the first time they met me. And they listened, and they had my back since. Have my daughter's back. She knows, like, if nobody's there, the people from ANWO are going to be at court. If nobody's there making signs, the people from ANWO go keep on talking. She called me today and said, Mommy, I know you got some warrior sisters on your team that's not going to give up on me and just let me stay here. So I think I'm going to be all right because I just know you and the people that you brought, they're not going to stop. And so I got to say that because even if you are used to doing these things professionally for other people, when when it happens to you, and I hope it doesn't, you're going to need someone to have your back. And these are the people that have it and believed me, right? Because other organizations don't always believe, you know, what you're saying as a grandma, as a mom. They want you to answer 50 questions and it's still not enough, right? So I just wanted to say that I'm grateful for y'all and I appreciate everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, I just want, we're going to go into the announcements, then we're going to get into some question and answer because I see that some questions, answers, and some questions and comments came through. So I just want to thank Roxane and Christina. One of the comments that said, and I really like this comment, it said, before I go into the announcement, it says that your son Jamaal existed and he mattered. you know. And then with Christina, I'm familiar with Kayla's because as a member of ANWO and sharing what's going on with her and supporting her, and she has the uncanny. I don't know how. We just read. This was our last book, so I'm still in this book right now, and she right now, Kayla's a captive maternal. She's a urban intellectual, and this is a time for her to, get to know her surroundings, get to know the people that's in there, build community, because that's where a lot of our liberation work happens. Is with our incarcerated people, but she definitely has our support. And I think we have letter writing campaign going on for her right now. Yes, a letter writing campaign going on for her right now. So we do encourage, our viewers and followers to go ahead and support. So I'm going to go ahead and start with our announcements. Let me get in here. All right, I'm sharing now. So, if you enjoyed today's program and what we're saying here motivates you as an African woman to want to get active, want to go ahead and start building an organization where you are or on an international scope, and you would like to join the African National Women's Organization, ANWO, we are the only anti-colonial, anti-imperialist revolutionary organization for Black women. We have members in Africa, Europe, Latin America, and all around the United States. ANWO is leading on everyday issues concerning African women. We're not just on the internet. We're not, we're on the ground in our communities organizing for African liberation. Join the International Collective of African Women, building the revolutionary capacity of African women. To learn more about membership and to join, go to amwoohuru.org/join. And now ANWO ourselves, we are a organization of the African poor and working class. As yesterday said, we volunteer our time to build ANWO. So we need your support to establish the international mecca for African women. We're calling on all members, followers, viewers, anyone that unites with establishing a working class embassy, a hub for community empowerment, and a testament to the resilience of African people. Don't wait to enter this program. I see some pledges came through. Pledge your support right now. Also, consider becoming a sustaining donor, which we have donation levels starting at just $5 a month. We welcome one-time donations of any amount also, and every dollar helps us buy a nail, a drywall, flooring. We've done the roof. Now we need to get the inside and get this building open. So donate to ANWOuhuru.org/donate. Or as yesterday stated, you could do Zelle and what is it, ANWO Uhuru? Yesterday for Zelle.
Info is our email address, so info@anwouhuru.org.
Yes, info@anwouhuru.org. And then, as I talked about before, wear your politics with ANWO. ANWO shop features t-shirts, sweatshirts, travel bags, mugs, hoodies, sweatshirts, and even socks. Go to anwouhuru.org/storefronts. I have to update this slide. Storefront to go ahead and shop the ANWO site. Also, my favorite things, if you look at my skin and it looks good, and that's because I did use my decolonase today. So become a decolonizer, what we call our distributors and customers of Decolonase Hair and Body. Decolonase Hair and Body are natural personal care products that highlight ingredients and traditional care practices used by indigenous people around the world. In addition to featuring images and quotes of African revolutionaries, they are good. I cannot wait to this for us to end, just so I can get some butters on my hands. I've been washing my hands a lot. So from our butters and conditioners to our oils, Decolonase has you covered from head to toe. Make your next purchase of skincare and hair care products from us at decolonase.com. Now, if you like today's program and want to get involved and wants to get and help us produce shows and programs and just, work for 2025, consider volunteering with us. ANWO is looking for interpreters, video editors, researchers, and chat moderators for future broadcasts and programs. Email us at info@anwouhuru.org if you would like to share your skills. And coming up, before we know it, is the ANWO Liberation Lives Community Awards and Gala, a fundraising event hosted by ANWO to celebrate 10 years of ANWO organizing African women by joining us for an unforgettable evening of celebration, inspiring talks, community recognition, and also music. This is a virtual program. Go to anwouhuru.org/events to register.
Don't go to events. We want to go to
Not
Tiny
really
Earl.
events. I'm so sorry.
tinyurl.com/ANWO Gala.
Correct. I'm so sorry. Look, there's a lot of events going on. I love that we always have a lot of things going on. So the Harriet's Daughter Study Group and book clubs are monthly virtual or in-person meetings led by African National Women's Organization, where Black women and femmes come together to discuss books and literature that centers on African liberation themes. We invite you to join us, whether you have read the book or not. It's always a good discussion. The April 2025 book is Somebody's Daughter, a memoir by Ashley Ford, where her grandmother reveals the truth about her father's incarceration. Ashley's world is turned upside down. And Ashley embarks on a powerful journey to find the connections between who she is and what she was born into, discovering that however much we try to untether ourselves from our painful past, the ties that bind families together are the strongest ones of all. So Harris Daughters Book Club will be discussing and analyzing the impact of mass incarceration on childhood development and also adult development as well. The next discussion will be April 13th, 2025 at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And it's open to African women, femmes, and those who are in solidarity with ANWO. Visit anwowho.org/events to stay up to date for all upcoming international, national, regional, and local events and programs. And I got one more slide for us, and that is the 4th annual Black Mothers March on the White House. The Black Mothers March on the White House is a coalition of Black-led organizations that have been involved in the struggle to rescue our children from the custody of the state. We exist to expose the systemic attack on Black women and the Black family by the U.S. government. The U.S. government has been able to perpetrate this terror on our communities under the guise of protecting children using Department of Human Resources, euphemistically referred to as the Child Protective Services. So join ANWO on Mother's Day weekend, May 9th through the 11th, 2025 for curated events and the 4th annual Black Mothers March on the White House. Register at blackmothersmarch.com. Uhuru. That's the end of the announcements. And let's go ahead and discuss some of these comments and questions that came in. Uhuru, President yesterday. You're on mute, President.
Oh, there we go. We had to let our comrade Christina go. She had an event that around participatory defense that she had to participate in around her case. So just want to thank her so much for participating in today's program and fitting us into her schedule. So any questions? We had a lot of comments that came up and through the comments, so I think we saw a lot of them. But is there any questions specifically for our guests that that came through? I saw 1 or 2 right before we went into announcements. Well, I don't know. I think it was a rhetorical question. Tag 5101 was saying lies, damn lies. They don't give a damn about our youngins. What must we do? What must we do? I think this is a program, and maybe I'm gonna hand it over to Comrade Roxane. Do you have a what must we do? Maybe you're an example of what we must do.
Don't sit home feeling helpless and hopeless. Get involved. Join something. Join ANWO. Join Life After the Impact. Go to your town hall meetings. Find out what they're doing down there. If they be doing some stuff and then you are impacted by it, right? Go to your school board meeting. Start somewhere, but do not sit home and put your head in the sand. That's not the answer. We have to be in it in order to be to get our needs met. And the other thing that I will say is that and it just escaped my mind, but the train just went off the track as I was talking. But the thing is that we are who we've been waiting for. It's like we got, but what we got is a lot of power that we don't use. So use it.
No, I appreciate that. I'm sorry, we just delayed.
Are you not? I think one of the more powerful things that has come for me, that's come out of the Uhuru movement, is not just that Black lives matter. We know that Black lives matter. Our lives matter to them because we are a commodity for them, dead or alive. what really matters and what we really should be pushing for is Black power. African power, as we want to kind of drop that and identify as Africans, as since we are African internationalists, but really African power wins once we come together and organize. There's it's always more beneficial to be organized than to try to do things on our own. One of my favorite, like I'm a book person, so one of my favorite books is Revolutionary Suicide, and you hear Dr. Huey P. Newton talk about the difference between reactionary martyrdom and then revolutionary suicide. Like if we're doing it right, we won't be have to do either, but we know that we're going to lose some people due to the struggle in the first place. And when we do lose them, we want to make sure that we organize around them and push their in their memory. Uhuru.
There was two questions that I think they're also rhetorical. I pinned them. I pinned them for you, Jay. Lou Walker says, where's Doge, DOGE, which is Department of Governmental Efficiency,
Yeah.
when it comes to investigating the civil rights and child welfare departments? These are the two most flawed. I think that's I'm sorry, it's ... So there must have been a continue somewhere.
Yeah.
But I get the gist. And I think this whole program allows us to recognize that the Department of Government Efficiency is efficiency for white folks.
Correct. It's for the colonial powers to make more
Yeah.
workers. And
Yeah.
I've been telling people that like this to make us more workers. They're gonna take away government funding to make more people be workers and put
But
even more
even
pressure on the state.
but even more government funding, even in places of labor and all that, is also to make us workers. So I don't think that people should feel devastated when something is taken away or when something's given, particularly in this government, because all of it is here to keep us captive. And when we look at the investigation into child, they don't investigate. There's never been a real investigation into child welfare in this country. There has been testimonials, there has been tribunals around the state, particularly of Black children and being taken from their parents as a method of genocide, and nothing is happening. The United States doesn't think this is a problem. African mothers and African people think it's a problem. But that's why I'm saying, like, Department of Governmental Efficiency, what does that mean to the African working class when nothing is efficient for us, except for the police in our community? That's efficient for the state to police us and stuff. So, and the next one is from Tag 5104. I mean, did anybody else want to contribute to that? I'm sorry. Doge and the efficiency. And then how is it possible, tag 55104, how is it possible that Black women face the highest risk in any group in childbirth? Colonialism.
Exactly. And Keith, somebody did put up here the whole, white supremacist system is working as a design, but I would say it's a colonial system. We actually have to remove that name from it, that brand from it. It's not, there's nothing supreme about being white. It's just that race, race is a created construct, but skin color is the most easily way to discriminate to someone, to create a hierarchy, to create caste systems, is by skin color. So when you're looking for power, they don't care that you're German or that they're Scandinavian or they may be Serbian. When it comes down to it, is the complexion of protection, as my uncle say. Do we have it? We don't, because we are able to be easily identified from the outside. So that's the reason why it's just an excuse for the colonial system. We just, they use skin color and race, as an excuse, or racism as an excuse for the colonial system.
Yes. We have a few more minutes, and just wanted to. We have a question from Black Collar King. Is there a way that we can send letters on Kayla's behalf So we want to direct you to go to where is Iris Crumb. I'm going to type it in the chat. Where is iriscrum.com, and the ways that you can support Kayla and Iris can be found on that website. If you go back a few updates, we have all of the information there for how you can support the case through letter writing, through emailing, and things like that. And I just want to say that we don't have Black power. We haven't destroyed colonialism. And at the point that we destroy colonialism, we'll know. At the point where we defeat racism, we won't know.
Correct.
Because then that would mean that white people like us, And then how do we know that all the white people like us? If we defeated racism, how do we know when we won that? But when we defeat the power structure, colonial mode of production.
Correct.
When we undermine that, when we defeat it, when we take the legs out from underneath it, the power structure will be changed. If African people are fighting for our liberation and creating a new world, then we'll know when we're winning because we have measured ourselves against those gains. So, that's when we'll know. We have not attained Black power. And I think just as a general parting words, that when we are seeking liberation, because I've been in a lot of space where liberation is thrown around a lot. When people say liberation, when you say liberation, what does that mean to you? If liberation is reform, if liberation means just to get a better living condition underneath the current capitalist system, good luck to you. My liberation is the total destruction of the oppressive, parasitic, colonial capitalist system that keeps us in a cycle of want and poverty, of violence and mayhem. I want this gone. And not only do I want it gone, I'm working toward making that happen. You should be too. And you should not be fearful if the empire is crumbling. You should be like, I want to light it on fire. I want to make it crumble too, because why? Then we have an opportunity to create the world that we need and deserve. But if we are working within the framework of the current parasitic colonial capitalist system, we will not have the ability to create the world and the conditions and the all of the things that we need as a people. And so we should be emphatic, we should be joyous right now and find any way that we can to quicken the pace at which this thing is crumbling at our foots, and be able to, and if you're not a part of organization, you're going to be fearful. But if you're part of organization, we are building a new world. We've talked about in this program, the community policing, and I say that because, safety, community safety that people are creating in different places around the country. We have solutions around how we protect our families against the CPS system. There are discussions, there are opportunities for people to be involved in the actual building of this new society that is happening right now. And so we have to be empowered. We cannot be fearful of what's crumbling in front of us. We have to be enthusiastic about the vision for our future that we desire and the future that we want to create for ourselves and generations to come. And with that, I want to thank Roxane Blanchard Johnson from Life After the Impact for participating in our program. I want to thank Comrade Christina Laster, who also participated but had to go fast. I want to thank Comrade Jay, who's struggling through internet issues in the place where she is right now, and helping to really produce and moderate this show. So thank you all. And we really encourage you all to come to our ANWO virtual gala, which is going to be next Saturday. It is virtual. You can go to tinyurl.com/ANWO gala, register to get reminders, and also be at the Black Mothers March in Washington, D.C. Like I said, you have to support this issue. It is critical. It hits at the center of African families, the center of our African nation. And if you're not there, something's wrong. Try to make it. If you can't make it, donate to help other people get there. That's all I'm saying. So thank you so much, Roxane. Thank you so much, Coco. Thank you so much, Jay. Thank you so much for Christina and all of our ANWO members who have been struggling around some of these issues that we are putting down, and all of the women and all of the people who have been involved with supporting Roxane and being a part of her journey, and also Christina. So thank you so much. We'll see you next month. Uhuru.
Uhuru.